Hello, Metalheads. Welcome to the first ever episode of Malcast, a new podcast focusing on the culture, community, and music of the UK heavy metal scene and beyond. I'm Malcast. I'll be hosting you and talking to some fantastic people. As this is the first episode, it's a bit of a shitter get off the pan affair. I've got a couple of really cool guests that are going to be chatting with me about their life in the heavy metal community, whether it be through work as a fan or being in a band. And we're just going to see how it goes, and hopefully we'll take off from there. So thank you so much for joining us. If anybody wants to be involved in Malcast, wants to come on, talk about your job, talk about your life, talk about your band. We don't necessarily want people that are really front and center of the heavy metal community. We want to talk to interesting people that are metalheads at heart, but may just have a normal job, and find out how it relates to your metalhead outlook on the world, just doing a day job. So if you're interested, do get in touch with us. You can contact us by email at malcastuk@gmail.com. Also, if you just search Malcast on Facebook, you'll be able to find us through there. And let's get on with the show. First guest coming up right now. So we're working. So first guest up on Malcast, we are joined by Kelly Wallace, formerly a guitar player from VALLENFYRE and El Sol Taste, and then the upcoming DARHK project, which is pretty exciting from what I've had a little sneak peek of it, and sounds pretty good. So how you doing, Sam? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. I'm all good.
Yeah.
Also, I am going to mention it because I've got to.
Right.
On top of that, I'm also going to be the live guitar player for STRIGOI, which is some of the guys from VALLENFYRE.
Oh, nice.
So, busy. Going to be busy.
That's a nice opportunity. Nice mug. Nice mug as well. Love a bit of Star Wars branding.
I thought you might appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Sam, the reason I wanted to get you on is that how sort of eclectic your experience of the scene, the metal scene is, because you've been a fan for a long time. You've been a tech behind the bands. You've been performing, on stage with the bands, and you've also been in like the selling musical equipment. So you've been in like endorsements and such, haven't you? With
bands used to do isolations as well. Yeah, I helped you boys out in One Dice, didn't I, back in the day?
Oh, did you? Was that with like, what was that, Symbols or something? I don't know.
It was Symbols. Yeah, it was Symbols.
Yeah,
talking about guitars as well.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, long time ago then. But so I mean, obviously, everything's changed dramatically in the last 2 years in the music scene. You were in Europe, you were doing like festivals and all that, and then obviously that came to an end with VALLENFYRE. You started getting new projects underway, and then everything kind of gets swept out from underneath you, didn't it, with COVID? So what are you expecting it to be like now, seeing it we're coming out of it again? Are you expecting like a massive resurgence, and is there a buzz that you can feel in the community locally?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of picked up a lot more since around about June, July time.
Right.
Bands are starting to come back in, playing more. Festivals are starting to happen. I mean, obviously you have Bloodstock, which I didn't go to, unfortunately. But I manage a band called Casket Feeder, and they played. So that's really cool. Damnation's coming up. I went to a festival down in Plymouth a couple of weeks ago called Burn It Down Festival. And like tours are getting announced, and Sifrim and Dark Tranquility announced like shows for next year, various other people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that next year will be the year where we finally fucking get back on track. It's driving me mental. It really is, man.
From a creative perspective, it's incredibly stifling, isn't it? Because a lot of people have sort of found creativity in lockdown, but for those of us that thrive in a live environment, it's been an absolute nightmare, hasn't it? So have you found anything to sort of to fill the void? I know you've obviously been working on DARHK stuff, but have you found anything creatively that you've been able to do during lockdown, or just gaming?
Just gaming. That's it. No, I've been doing that, and I've been trying to write, but like with my DARHK stuff, just before lockdown kicked in, that's when I finished like what I had to do for like the EP or album, whatever it's going to be.
Right.
And I don't want to do like one thing now and then go straight into like the next bit, because I want a gap, so it's not the same. Do you know what I mean? So I'm purposely taking a break from that. So at the moment, I'm not really doing anything. Wow. I've started to pick it up again because we've started to write for like the next one, but we still need to do the first one. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
It's a weird time. It's a very weird time.
yeah, it's a sort of big gap in that creativity train as well, isn't it? To have it sort of sat there for that amount of time and then trying to find the fire under that again to get it popping. Because obviously, if you're anything like me, you agonize over little bits and stuff, and you're probably listening to stuff 18 months later that you thought was great then, but now you're thinking, well, maybe that isn't the riff, like, you know, or are you supremely confident in it?
I don't want to sound arrogant, but yeah, I'm really proud of it because it's like a nice moment in time.
Yeah.
And I worked 2 years on like 8 songs to make sure that it was exactly how I wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm excited. But moving on, the stuff that I'm writing now, because of COVID and lockdown, it's just fucking doom. It's just pure miserable shit. And I had the idea, okay, like more blast beats. No, man.
No,
not at the moment.
Well, you've got to go with what feels right for it, I suppose. You know what I mean? And if that's the vibe that's coming out, just you can't force it, can you? If it's not that, you can't beat a bit of doom, to be honest, mate. Because doom's one of those genres that is so easy to get wrong. People think that it's just playing guitars slowly, don't they? You know,
and like a lot more to that.
And I mean, like people just think it's but getting a drummer, if you take your standard metal drummer and rein him in to be in a doom band. To be able to do, you just can't do it. They just can't. Like some drummers just can't keep time at that pace either, which is quite
quite
weird, isn't it?
They're so used to blasting, and you have to slow them down. They get a bit like, I just want to, you know. Go for it.
So is that? I mean, that the stuff that you're writing now, then is that still going to be dark, or is that still going to be? Is that going to be something else?
No, it's going to be dark. It's going to be dark.
Cool.
Yeah. So hopefully we're going to be recording that next year. That's the plan, early half of next year, because we're the producer that's going to be doing it is Stefan, who's the guitar player within Temptation.
Oh right, yeah,
he's going to be doing it. So me and him have been in contact quite a lot. Obviously, you know, he's over in Europe. Our drummer's also over in Belgium, so I haven't been able to go over to see him and spend time in his studio. So now things are starting to open up. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we can get this thing rolling in 2022 because we wanted it out in 2020. But these things happen, you know. It's like, is what it is. And I'm in no rush. Happens when it happens, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's that again with COVID. I mean, I think we're going to be talking about COVID and the effects of COVID for fucking a long time to come. I think everyone that I have on here, we're going to touch on the way that COVID's affected them. But for me, it's kind of I built everything I needed for this podcast, right? And I was like, right, I've got a microphone and I've got a decent pair of headphones and I've got this and that. And then my mate went, you've built a home studio. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do vocals from home now. And it sort of opened up that avenue for me. And I never would have, you know, this was a lockdown baby. This was a don't go mental during lockdown thing. And I've taken that long to get going on it. But now I can do vocals from home and that's really free. And so I can kind of work with anyone in the world now. You know, have you found that? Because you said your drummer's obviously in a different country in Europe. Can they put stuff down where they are? Have they got the facilities to sort of record and get it over to you, or does it have to be?
Well, I kind of like program all the drums. The only thing that I can't do very well is fills.
Right.
So the way in which we're going to do it, because our drummer's in propane, so he's quite busy with them anyway.
Right. Okay.
But to like keep it easy, he's like, I'm just going to follow your patterns and then just add fills and we record, and that's pretty much it.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah, it's a good process, man. It really is, isn't it? It's really good. So, emergency questions. I've got emergency questions. I'm throwing them out there, right? So, bit weird, some of the questions. So, in your opinion, best heavy metal musicians to form a folk band?
Oh my God.
I'm not fucking about.
Adam from fucking Behemoth.
Right.
And Jerry Cantrell. There you go. There's 2.
There you are. That's your funk band. Funk band? We're fucking going completely off the rails.
No, I don't want to see him play funk. No.
I want to see it. That'd be just ridiculous, wouldn't it? So, what are you filling your time with other than music? Then are you still? You don't do like working in music shops anymore, do you?
No, I don't. I work for a merchandise company now. So.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, man. Yeah.
So there's going to probably be an explosion in that as well now, isn't there? Because that's obviously has that been simmering for the merch stuff?
No, it's done really well because obviously people still need clothes, you know. So and albums are coming out. So
of course, absolutely. Yeah, so it's not just out there in the live venues, is it? It's like selling it online, and bands obviously trying to keep themselves going financially. So that's quite interesting. I didn't really think that through then, did I?
That's all right.
I got a clue what I'm doing, mate. I'm just sat here fiddling with me little fucking.
I'll tell you what, man. Like beginning of the year, I spent an absolute fortune on clothes. Half of them hadn't been worn. I was like, I'm so bored because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't see anyone. It's just like, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. It's like,
oh, mate, mine's sunglasses. Mine's sunglasses. I've got like 20 pairs of sunglasses. I keep buying them off AliExpress, right? And they're like £2-3 quid, and you don't notice it until it comes out of the bank at the end of the year. And it's just like when I come back out into the world, I'll have a different pair of sunglasses for every fucking day, every day of the week, you know. But it's absolutely nuts, mate. So I'm completely flummoxed, mate. I don't know where to go next with it. In this weird, you ought to see where I'm sat. And I've got this little green screen room that I've created under my stairs. The cats have shit in the litter tray, like just over there, and it fucking stinks, man. And I can't get up. I can't get up and clean it. So I just got to deal with the shit stink. Like, you know?
Oh no! Oh, sorry, dude.
That's all right, mate. It's absolutely, you know, I had to do this, mate. I had to get on it today, and we had to fucking try and get something down, like, you know, because my anxiety has kept me. Well, that's sort of a point to touch on there. Like mental health wise, how have you found it in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years? You've been struggling, or have you managed to keep on top of it?
Honestly, it's been like a roller coaster. It's been like either been okay, or I've just like had near breakdowns. So
really,
it's not been fun. I've got a history of depression anyway, so really bad stuff. So is what it is, man. I have to kind of take every day as it comes, type thing.
What do you obviously you got metal as a music as a catharsis there. What are your tips for people if you say, you know, young people coming up there start suffering a little bit because more people are suffering now? What do you do to sort of try and right yourself, or do you just kind of ride it out?
I try and throw myself into something that makes me escape, if that makes sense. So whether it's picking up a guitar, whether it's like reading a book, gaming, binging like a documentary series, so at least I'm learning instead of just watching.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Do a lot of that kind of stuff. So just find something, you know, that's not distracting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're pretty quiet really on social media. You know, you post like a daily picture of a sunny beer in the garden or something. But I mean, on the whole, though, you're not like a manic poster, are you? So you're not chasing that sort of social media endorphin rush. Because I've got addicted to TikTok over lockdown. So now I'm like a 45-year-old man with a TikTok account.
I saw you had that because you're on my TikTok. I mean, I never use TikTok, but I did add you on it. I never look at it. I never look at TikTok. I don't know why I just haven't. But you've done very well off the back of that.
Well, I mean, 35,000 followers. It slowed down because I got a girlfriend and I stopped doing it. Do you know? It's like when you get into a new relationship. I sort of boils, everything goes off to the side, doesn't it? You know, and you don't even realize you're doing it, but because you're getting loved up and all that, it's all fucking lovely.
Yeah, happy for you, mate.
Oh, cheers, buddy. Yeah, she's a darling. She really is. She's a fucking absolute darling. Yeah, it's smart. How long have we been talking for? Not long, mate, is it? It's hard to keep conversations going, isn't it? It's not hard.
About 10, 15 minutes.
Is that all we've been doing? It feels like about 4 hours. We've got about 4 hours. So, are you allowed to talk about how the which band is it you're going out with? Is the live guitarist?
I'm going to be going out with STRIGOI. So that's Greg McIntosh, and he's in Paradise Lost, and was in VALLENFYRE. And then Chris Casket, he was in VALLENFYRE with me as well.
Oh wow, that's cool. Are there dates booked in for that already? So, or is that?
Yeah, we've got like a bunch of festivals booked up for next year. One of them being Brutal Assault, which I'm looking forward to going back to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I've got a feeling that might be either the first or second show.
Right.
So, you know, talk about getting chucked in the deep end.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, but to feel that buzz again.
It's like 30,000 people would be fine. I'm like, great. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Are they like? Have they been around a while, or are they a new?
No, well, yeah, it's new. So that came about after VALLENFYRE ended. The first album's out. It came out just before lockdown kicked in.
Right.
So it's like really bad timing, unfortunately. So just delayed everything.
Yeah.
All the shows that we had booked to promote that album's just gone straight out the window.
At least it's coming back.
Yeah.
Because Gregor's got some he's got some clout, and so that's why obviously you're able to get those shows because all his work he did with Paradise Lost and all that,
Oh yeah.
Exactly. He's in the know, isn't he? So it's all good.
Yes, very much so.
So same rig you're taking out, same guitar rig, same amp, or have you switched up anything? You still a Jackson guy, or are you
amp? No, I'm not with Jackson anymore. I'm with a German custom guitar company called Siggy Brown, and at the moment they're building my new guitar for me.
Oh wow!
It's like a model designed by their art installations guy, Steve. It looks awesome, man. Like I'm over the moon about it. Getting about 3 or 4 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, that in regards to amps, I've never really sort of stuck to one because of the shows that we played at festivals. You normally just get a list. Do you want Marshall? Do you want Messer? Do you want this?
Oh right.
And I normally just go for I'll have that Messer, please. Just use that. So I did have an amp, and then I sold it because I just wasn't using it.
Yeah, just wasn't taking it out with you. So is this new guitar entirely to your spec then?
No, it's not to my spec. No, it's the art installation guy, Steve, for Siggy Brown. It was one that he made, that he designed, and I just fell in love with it. And he's like, well, you want to use my design? I was like, yeah, man, like that guitar is fucking amazing. Like it's just everything that I want.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3-4 weeks due. So
nice. Oh, that's proper exciting. New guitar day,
Yeah, man, I haven't had a new guitar in years. So
can't be a new guitar day. That's going to be lush.
Yeah, and the company's like really nice and they're super supportive. So it's very nice.
Oh, brilliant. I'll tell you what, mate, I'll let you go. It's been lovely catching up. I know it's been short, but you have been my guinea pig. I'll let you know when this is going out. So that's it for this week's Malcast, first and hopefully the first of many. Thank you so much for joining us on this one, listening to my often incoherent ramblings. My nerves are in on this one, and thank you for bearing with me. I hope you enjoyed the content. There will be more coming in the very, very near future. Thanks to everyone that helped put it together. It's very, very much appreciated. The intro music for Malcast was written specifically for this. I'll put a link to the artist and producer in the description as well. And now I'm falling over my own tongue, trying to remember what to say to people. But thank you, and we'll see you again soon. Right, so next up, I'm really excited to introduce Tom Lewis, who is a psychology student doing a PhD in his final year. Tom's got specific interests in the LGBTQ community. A lot of your work's based around trans people in society. Tom, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And there we are. Fantastic. Yeah. There we are. And Tom's also a musician. Actually studied guitar. Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, guitar, bass, vocals. Yeah.
Oh right, multi-instrumentalist.
You are.
So that's no, I'm not either. I've literally got a voice and an acoustic guitar, and that's where we are. So the reason I wanted to get you on stage, I think is fascinating from a psychological viewpoint. Where people in like our community come from, and if there are it's a really broad spectrum, isn't it? Like the heavy metal community, it's a really, really broad spectrum. But are there any, would you say you notice any similarities that people have got, even from different genres? Is there something that you may be able to not exactly pinpoint, but say it's something that a lot of people have got in common that draws them to this genre of music?
Yes, here's the thing. It's interesting you raise that as well, because a lot of people outside the metal community have a misconception of it's all we're all this one homogenous kind of group of people. We're all very similar and we all like the same sort of music, but actually within the metal community itself we do differ quite significantly. Actually, I think generally speaking, you meet people and I couldn't listen to that band and I love this band. So when it comes to similarities between us all, I would say the main similarity is that we kind of have this a lot of people I know that are into metal were either bullied at some point in their life, or they were kind of they've experienced some sort of trauma. I think the music of metal itself, sort of you go to the core aspects of metal music, going into it, there's a way to channel aggression, a way to channel sort of difficult emotions, I think. So that's what draws a lot of us to it, I think. I'm speaking for myself personally, but it just seems that way anecdotally from what I've sort of read and stuff. And I think, that's sort of the main similarity, I would say. I think also there's the aesthetic aspect to it too. So like the way we all sort of like look and dress, and there's that like finding your tribe thing, like finding yourself like in the community is like super important, I think. So I definitely found myself through metal. I did like, if I didn't have metal, I probably would just be, I don't know what I'd be now. I'd be like a neutral husk of like, I don't know, like what was it? You know, remember Futurama, the neutral people? I'm just like, I'd be just like one of them. If I die, tell my wife hello.
Yeah, tell my wife hello. I mean, it's interesting because I sort of veered away from it. I was very, very metal, like in the early 2000s, and then when my band split up, I went kind of normal. And I was still kind of heavily tattooed down to the wrist on that, but I had short hair and you had like a chin strap beard, and I got married and I had children, and it sort of metal it was always there, sort of simmering in the background. And then in my late 30s, I kind of came back to it, and I started growing a beard and my hair again, and then I rediscovered my passion for it, and then rediscovered myself. And like, I describe this now as my like final Pokemon form. You know, this is what I've evolved to. And I was well on my way at 19, 20, I was well on my way to here, but I took this massive detour through my 20s and 30s. So it's interesting that you say that people kind of find themselves in the genre. And it tends to attract people with insecurities and anxieties and things like that. My daughter is sort of a case in point at the moment. She's very self-conscious about herself. She's 13, so she's going through that weird, hormonal mess between 13 and God knows how
difficult time. Yeah.
And she's worried, about getting bullied, and she's worried about her weight, and she's worried about how her teeth look. But at the same time, she's making herself alternative. She's dyed her hair black. She's wearing darker makeup on the eyes. And I think it's a strange, almost phenomenon that she's worried about these things, but she's also inadvertently making herself a target for these things.
Yeah. That's
as
so
well.
Yeah.
But so, she's finding it in a community that are always targeted anyway. Because, when it comes to music, where the metal crowd, like you said earlier, people have a preconceived idea about it. We're kind of marginalized out on it's them, they're the weirdos, they're the shouters, they're the, do you know what I mean?
We got a separate bit. Yeah. Like,
and she's bringing, and she's bringing herself into that, but at the same time as suffering all the insecurities that it may get directed at her. Isn't that quite weird though? Do you think that's quite an interesting,
and I think it sort of ties into that kind of, so that's like idea in psychology of like where you kind of have people sort of identifying either with, it's more on the trauma literature, to be honest. Like you have like people identify with the person that caused the trauma, or like or they lean into the person that didn't cause it. That makes it go the exact opposite direction. With metal and bullying, it's a very similar thing. So I think like the idea is that, so I remember myself personally, I sort of knew that I was going to be a target when I went to school because I was the only mixed race kid in a very rural countryside town. Like I was the half Jamaican kid with like, I had a famous cousin, still technically famous, I guess. But like, that's a separate story. He's all good. We're fine if anyone listens to this. So we're good. But but what I mean, it's like I had all these different things that kind of like made me different anyway. And I think like part of my thinking was like, well, you know what, I'm different anyway, so I'm going to become more different. Screw the system and become more different. And that's what it is. I think it's like, I'll lean into this because I've always been a bit strange anyway. Like I've always been myself. I'm not saying your daughter's strange. I'm saying I'm personally quite strange anyway. So like,
she is.
It's just it's a good thing. Strange people are interesting, right? So I'm super weird and I'm cool with it. It's like I just was like, well, I'll lean into this now. And people seem to like nowadays. Now I'm older, I guess. Now I'm in my 30s and doing this PhD and stuff. I've experienced this really weird privilege shift. I'm like this thing called a PGR rep, which means I sort of like speak on behalf of the rest of the PhD students in certain forums and stuff. And I'm now seen as cool, man. I'm like, what? Why am I suddenly cool? Like with my thick glasses and my, the cheese sandwich and like whatever else, my lactose intolerance, etc. Like suddenly I'm cool. Like, So it's interesting how things shift over time as well, right? Because like, I think you're cool, by the way, as well. Like, so
thank you. Thank you. I just like in terms of inclusivity and acceptance, obviously the world has had this almost monumental shift in the last 20 years where we've had the real emergence of pride in the gay and the trans and lesbian community, and people just being genuinely more accepting. We're still a lot of bigots, we're still fighting the fight, we still need to continue fighting that fight on as an ally or as a member of the community like yourself. But it has changed, and I think like the heavy metal community have always been kind of accepting. Like one point is, are you aware of Mina Capoto?
Yes,
yeah. Obviously, she's from Life of Agony. So I mean, she's a trans woman that is very open and very out there with her, with her sexuality and with her identity. And it's incredible. And their fan base has got stronger and tighter as a result of it. But obviously, she'll have to face battles daily still with people that just go, well, no, you've got a penis, you're a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When clearly all you've got to do is look at her and she's a woman. It's easy. It's there in front of you. Yeah, she is gorgeous as well. Yes, and yeah, she's lovely.
Yeah.
But I think, what is it do you think about the heavy metal community then that makes us that more accepting? Is it because we're all baseline weirdos, or I mean, it's easier for us to say, oh, hang on, check me out. It's easier for us to say, yeah, come in, like, be one of us. I saw a thing recently about like there was the public and like the metalheads protecting little Nas X because he's out there doing all this cool flamboyant shit, like, and the metalheads are like, yeah, he's one of us. He's talking about Satan, and he's pissing off for Christians.
He's lap dancing with the devil. It was awesome. He's
lap dancing with the devil, and it's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, do you think that's what it is? Is that, because we are baseline weirdos that people are more inclined to sort of be accepted into the community?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I'd say we're othered, is the expression in psychology. Yeah, we are baseline weirdos, right? I think that's kind of like we are the othered people, if you like. So I think it's that case where we're sort of like, well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, the reason I got into metals because the people that were into metal in my school accepted me immediately. There wasn't any kind of like that was obviously a big part of it, because when people were like, oh, let's hang out, man. Sure, and they gave me my first Korn album, and I sort of went from there really. And yeah, great album.
What a place to start, like.
Yeah, Life is Peachy, great album. And I discovered like Black Label Society and like Zakk Wylde's guitar playing and definite man crush. So like, yeah.
Anyone that doesn't have a man crush on Zakk Wylde is, I think, is inhuman, to be honest, because he's kind of a specimen, and he has been, since being 19-year-old Zakk Wylde, wearing flares and long hair without his beard, rocking out with Ozzy with his Les Paul, giving himself a bad back because that's a weighty guitar. Like he was fucking cool then, and he was sexy. And women used to be holding up signs in the crowd with just like "fuck me, Zakk" on them and all that. And and he's a bit alpha. I hate the term alpha, but he is, you know what I mean? He is a bit that.
He's the alpha. He's like the alpha guitar player, right? He's the alpha.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, you put me and him in a room together, he's the alpha. There's no way about it. Like,
trust me, if I was in the same room as him, he'd definitely be the alpha. Most men are though in the same room as me. Most men are the alpha compared to me, so it's fine. Because like usually I tend to so here's a funny thing, right? Separate sort of anecdote, I guess, to this conversation. But like when I'm in a room with like other men, like going to the pub or something, a lot of my friends back home are like what I would call normal people, right? So they're like, normcore. Which team do you support? And like, hasn't she got great baps, etc., etc., etc. And I'm like, oh yes, I'm definitely. Oh, what lovely nails she has! Like,
I know. Yeah,
do you know, darling?
Yeah,
that kind of thing for me. Where I'm like, I'm more into that. Like, oh, she has nice nails. Like, yeah.
I did exactly the same. I was going through this, scrolling through TikTok, which I do habitually.
Yeah, I do as well.
And then this woman came up, and she was 100% gorgeous, like 100% gorgeous. And I commented, eyebrow game is tight. You know what I mean? And that's what I noticed, like straight off the cuff, like, I noticed the eyebrows and the makeup. And I think, it's important as well, because obviously both of us are kind of challenging masculinity as well. And especially, toxic masculinity is a huge problem. And even in the heavy metal community, toxic masculinity is very much still a thing. It's very much beers and boys.
Especially in like certain subgenres.
Yeah, certain genre, like the thrash genre, you know what I mean? And it is all
Black
like,
metal.
Booze and boys and manly, you know what I mean? And then people, people like you and I, we're able to challenge those ideas. And people see me and they scroll across my page and they see the beard and they go, oh, Viking, pirate, hang on, he's wearing eyeliner. And then, hang on, he's got his nails done. And then it starts a dialogue going. And some people just can't cope with it, can they? Some people they can't, shut off. Like, oh my God, like what? And I just don't understand that. Like, every time my girlfriend gets a new dress, I'm like, we are doing a transition video in that. And I'm on it, I'm absolutely on it. And but it is nice to see it. It's coming around though, because you identify as Pan.
I'm Pan, yeah.
There we are. And And it's nice that we can get people in the community. Do you know, I mean, have you met many gay, lesbian, bi, pan people in the metal community? Is it something that...
Good question. Yeah, I've met a couple people over the years. Like, I remember one lad I played a gig in Oxford, and he was like, "Oh, you're really handsome," and I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." Like,
oh, hello.
Yeah, like, hello, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And he wasn't too bad himself. And the thing is, like, oh, sorry.
That's all right.
But like, so yeah, and I was like, oh, and he was like, oh, I really struggle in this community because, like, I'm gay and people sort of see me a certain way. And at the time I was very closeted, right? So like, it was sort of the hypocrite speaking, if you will. But I was like, if you like go out there and be yourself, people will accept you in this community, generally speaking. There'll be the odd person here and there, like Varg Vicker Ness, who's not a particularly pleasant person, from what I've been told. Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, it's he's a minority. That's the thing. People call out like that sort of crap in the metal community. It's even like with Machine Gun Kelly recently, with what he said about Slipknot and all that stuff. Yeah, I know. And the thing is, like, Slipknot, they just lost Joey, they've lost Paul. Like, they're going through a grieving process right now. Yeah. And as soon as people are like, well, Machine Gun Kelly's saying this about Slipknot, it's like, how unfair. They're grieving. They're like, ex-drummer right now, best friend of Corey, etc. And that's the thing. We always seem to be a community that thinks about people's emotions. We can empathize really well. We seem to be able to put ourselves under people's shoes, and I think that's the reason why it's so accepting. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And that whole Machine Gun Kelly thing, it's all about keeping himself relevant, to be honest. I don't think he,
of course,
I don't think he probably even means it. He's just trying to be controversial because controversial gets on the front pages of newspapers. And, to write a band like Slipknot off as 50-year-old men in masks after a 20+ year career and being one of the biggest metal bands on the planet, and they are metal. Yeah. I'm not going to argue that point. Anyone that argues that Slipknot aren't metal, they just fuck right off because they're a metal band. Isn't they just? So I mean, going back to that instance where there was the guy in Oxfordshire, the club and all that. So in your head, were you just like, kiss him? Did you want to get in? You know what I mean? Because obviously you being closeted, were you like, oh yeah, be yourself, and you're like, oh, touch my face.
My head's always like, touch my face and kiss me, damn it. But like, that's like me on a daily basis, mate. But I know, like. Especially after the pandemic, I've seen her touch anyone for a couple of years now. Like,
oh, please touch me.
Like, please touch me. Tell me you love me. Like, like, I used to know somebody's personality before I can kind of like get really attracted to them.
Right. Okay.
But saying that, I get attracted really quickly. So like knowing someone's personality to me takes like 20 minutes probably. So like, it's So I don't know. Like, it's interesting, but no, I just felt a great deal of empathy for him, actually. I felt like a real sort of, because he was younger than me as well. Not much younger, but like at the time I was 21, he was probably like 18. So like, I just had this like real deep empathy for him, to be honest with you, because I was just like, that poor kid's like going through life and he's not being his authentic self. And then I was like, I'm going through life not being my authentic self. I'm going to cry now. Like, so that was, So to be honest with you, I just sort of went, oh, you'd be fine, mate, and just be yourself, blah, blah. And I packed the car up, went home, got my kebab, and I just sort of cried, really.
Oh, so in between but the fact that you felt you had to be like that, you know what I mean? The fact that you couldn't, and obviously, this young man saw something in you that he opened up to you about it then and there, you know what I mean? So I don't know, is it gaydar? Is that you know what I mean? Is that a thing? Because obviously he saw something in you, and he saw a kindness or an empathy or something in you that made him say the words, "I'm gay but I'm really struggling." It's, you know what I mean? And it's really nice that you could do that for him and be there, even though you were closeted yourself. It's really nice that you could show that empathy and show that support. Yeah, it's really lush.
I think I give off like, generally I give off like these therapist vibes to people. I think. Like, yeah. My voice is quite low, and I'm sort of like, I look a bit official, maybe. I don't know, but I don't feel very official. Like, the glasses help a lot.
You got strong huggy vibes as well, though. You know what I mean? You got strong. You got lovely, strong cuddle vibes. Like, if I ever meet you face to face, I'm having a cuddle. I'm gonna have one. Like,
up the road, mate. I can pop up in a bit if you want.
Let's just fuck it. Let's just spoon up for the afternoon, innit?
Yeah. Spoon up and record a podcast. I did have to be very happy though. To be honest with you, mate.
Like, I don't know. She'd probably love it. To be honest, she'd probably come and spoon up in front of us, and we'll just have a big.
That's fine then.
Yeah, just be like a big heavy metal cuddle pile for the afternoon. But, do you remember? I don't know. It was in the news a while ago that a band called Cynic. There were two members of that band that came out exactly the same time. So the drummer Sean Reinhardt has passed away now, and and I've forgotten his name now. The guitar player, like incredible guitar player. What's his name? It'll come to me in a minute. It's not important, but if not, are you familiar with Cynic?
I'm not actually. No.
Look up folks. Look up Cynic Focus. That album. It's it's like an experimental death metal album. So it's got like electronic drums on it, and it's like 20 plus years old now.
Okay. Cool.
But Jesus Christ, Veil of Maya, the guitar solo on Veil of Maya. Oh my God. Like it's one of the best guitar solos ever written. But anyway, my point being that two members of that band both came out at the same time.
Oh wow!
And and they were like, right, we're gay, you know, we're still doing music, and the metal community just went, when's the next album? Do you know what I mean?
That's not right. Yeah, that's not right. Like, yeah.
And it was brilliant. I was reading through the comments, and I was getting my smiles getting bigger and bigger and bigger because people were like, yeah, all right, when we get a new music, you know, and that I think that's fucking lovely.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing studying then with the social trans project.
Yeah, sure, I can get on to that. I want to say something first though to you, Mate. I want to say thank you to you because you've been a massive instrumental part of me coming out to my parents.
Mate.
Thank you to you because like on your Depression Club live, like on TikTok when I was talking to you and stuff, and you were just like, look, just be honest about it and stuff. And I was like, it's funny, it's the same advice I gave that kid all those years ago, right? And I just thought, well, I'll do it. And my parents, right, they're the exact same reaction as the metal community almost. It was like, cool, we love you. And what do you want for tea when you come back next week?
Brilliant. No, I'm so glad you were able to do that, mate. I'm so glad that I could be like a tiny part of supporting you in it. Like I really do appreciate it. It's fucking amazing.
It's a big thing. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was made up, mate, when you came back and told me. I was like made up. I was like, oh yeah, fair play. Amazing.
Yeah, but it's changed my life. I'm so much happier now. Generally, I still have the odd bad day, obviously, but like,
of course, yeah.
But like generally speaking, now it's a better life for me now. I just feel like I can be myself and just move through life. And
yeah. You are you seeing anyone, or have you?
Well, I'm speaking to somebody actually, but like they're really busy with like their PhD at the moment as well.
Oh right, okay.
So like it's not really official. We're not really having dates yet and stuff, but we've sort of made it clear that I'm interested in them. So
oh wow,
yeah. So see how it goes.
Well, fingers crossed, like fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for cocktails and kisses somewhere down the line. Lovely.
Absolutely, I hope so. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what you're studying, buddy, if you don't mind, with what your project.
Yeah, sure thing. So like, as we sort of know, like in the literature and like just in general media and daily life, like transgender people face a lot of difficulties, like stigma, discrimination, those sorts of things. And generally speaking, like they are at higher risk for a lot of these different things. Like for example, this is quite deep stuff. So like I'm going to talk about suicide now. It's a bit of a trigger warning.
No, it's fine, mate. It's fine.
Yeah. So like we know that 1/3 of trans people try to attempt suicide, and 44%. 44% definitely think about it or attempt it. Right. So that's quite a big number, a huge number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Especially for a population that's actually like 0.2% of the overall global population. So it's a small number of people. So like 0.1% basically is has thought about committing suicide or has completed, which is really sad. So anyway, that's one of the difficulties that obviously like transgender people face in daily life, like so physical abuse, verbal abuse, issues around gender expressions. Like gender expression is obviously like how one appears, like masculine or feminine.
Yeah.
There's all these different things, and basically social relationships play a key role in sort of like ameliorating or reducing these kind of effects, if you will. So like basically my research looks at transgender health through the lens of social relationships.
Right.
So I'm basically trying to see how people in social relationships, so for example, these are like friends or romantic partners or like even work colleagues actually, how they can help in reducing these negative experiences. So I've run a couple of studies on this already. Like I've run three massive studies because I've been glutton to punishment. So yeah, so 3 massive studies. One of them's published now. Plug myself shamelessly there. Social science and medicine. So like it's an open access too, so anyone can read it. So like that's a paper, and it's called a meta synthesis, which is really hard for me to say because I have a bit of a lisp. So like yeah. So like people like I'll be doing presentations sometimes. My lisp gets worse in presentations. And I'll be there going like, so I conducted the meta synthesis. And I had to be like, sorry, meta synthesis. Okay. But but basically that's like taking all the past literature, like all the interview-based studies or the focus group-based studies. They always like find these different themes and stuff in these studies, and basically took all those themes and I just basically reordered them into a higher order sort of theme to make them like bigger themes and stuff. So there was 5 overall. I can't remember because my memory's terrible, but like basically there was like things around stigma and like coping and support and that sort of thing. So that was like the first sort of thing I did. I did a bunch of stuff with like focus groups and interviews, and I did another experimental thing looking at like interactions, mainly interactional concerns between cisgender women and transgender women. Because you have to, with research, you've always got to pick one. It's really annoying. Like sometimes, you want to look at something like globally, you want to be like, look at trans men and trans women and non-binary people and gender fluid people and blah, blah, blah. My supervisor's like, Tom, calm down, have a sip of your water, puff your inhaler.
Pick one.
Pick one. So I picked one. It's like, that's kind of what I've been doing for the past like 4 years now, three and a bit years even, because it's not quite 4 years yet. That's mainly my research topic. So I'm just trying to see like how I can identify those negative, how those social relationships assist in removing those negative experiences. And then basically like trying to isolate the bits and bobs and dynamics that kind of are most positive for both sides. But
because I mean, the society as a whole, is kind of coming round to it, isn't it? And I think, like, what do you think? And this is a really broad question, and I don't expect you to be able to answer it. But what do you think makes it so difficult for like cisgender people, Joe Blogg's Daily Mail reader, to accept a trans person as a trans person? What is that? What's the dissonance that makes them go, nope, I'm not having it? Because in my mind, I want as many types of people in the world as there can be. I want all the colors. I want all the diversity. I want all the vibrancy, And I want everyone to mingle, and I want everyone to breed and have sex with each other and love each other. And do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I see that as ultimately, that's the world I'd love to live in. But why do you think society is so attached to the binary that it makes them really uncomfortable to even step outside of that?
I think a big part of it, so like the thing is, like when you sort of look into these different things, you sort of like try to follow these different threads, right? And people like, is it generational? But it's like, well, not necessarily, because there's plenty of people over the age of 80 who are like, yeah, my grandson is my granddaughter and I'm totally cool with that. There's people like my dad's age and my mum's age who are like, well, this is completely fine. So I don't think it's necessarily a generational thing. So I think it is like a philosophical thing. With that whole gender binary, like you were saying, I think people have like a misconception of like people's roles, right? I think people that probably lean towards those kind of ideas of gender binaries probably are more into the sort of traditional kind of model of like family life, etc. So they sort of see women as having specific roles and men having specific roles. And we know that from research that if you do adhere to a like specific role as a man or a woman, it's terrible for your mental health, right? Actually, it's awful, because like if you like, so for example, like there's this whole like femininity masculinity split, right? So if you look at like a women's stereotypical role, it's like having children, staying at home, making the home sort of thing, which must be so incredibly boring and isolating, right? It must be terrible. And you see that all the time in American TV, especially look at old school Simpsons, for example. Look at Marge's portrayal and how bored she was when she picked up drinking in that episode of Hank Scorpio. Oh man, that Hank Scorpio episode is my favorite. They should bring Scorpio back. He had the best theme tune.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, anyway, like but like Scorpio is a separate issue. So like talking about serious. Hank Scorpio is the man. Like but like so what was I going to say? So yeah, there's that whole traditional thing. So like it's actually true. Like we see that in literature as well. Like people get isolated, they get pissed off and depressed and anxious, etc., because like they become shut off from the world. And then likewise, the men who like take on this role of like the prime breadwinner, who like take all the stress of like, I've got to feed, have a family, bring home the bacon and the sausages and the steaks and everything else. And it's like he's working 25 hours a day because he's stressed out to max, and he's got blood pressure that's through the roof and stuff. And it's like, actually, because of course, if we do stick to these roles, especially in today's society, you can't survive like that. You can't.
No, absolutely. I mean, the heteronormative relationship is quite stifling when you think about it. For like you just said, like individual people actually just blocking themselves into these roles. And it's the same thing like with male suicide. It's so high because men can't say, hang on, I'm struggling,
I'm really stressed. I'm really stressed out.
Put the brakes on, and they'll just go and they'll keep it in, and it'll seed, and they'll either lash out physically or they'll go completely introverted and do something, like suicide or attempt suicide, or even be successful at it. And it's really sad, isn't it, that we're that's where we are still.
Yeah, it's the next thing with gender binaries, like that's where it kind of comes into it. So I think those people have those sort of traditional views of like how it works, but they themselves are probably hypocrites because actually they're probably not necessarily living up to these binaries themselves. But it's like people I sort of have spoken to about this in the past, like they sort of have these very fixed views of like, how people had a particular discussion with the individual recently who I'm not going to name, but well, I could name them, but I'm not going to do that.
Keep it
name and shame time with Tom. And they were trying to assert that like there was these people in the transgender community that are like pushing an agenda, like they're trying to make everyone non-binary and everyone like this. And I was like, I don't think that's really not happening at all. Like, if you look at like the overall like media, if you look at like the literature, no one's trying to force anyone to be trans at all. That's not what's happening. It's basically a case of people are more comfortable in this day and age, thankfully, to come out as trans and like sort of go through life and stuff.
Yeah.
People like all these transgender children. Like I work with trans children. Right? I volunteer with them. I did before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And all 5 of them, I dealt with from the southwest as well. That's Bristol, Exeter, Cornwall, this whole region. Yeah. So 5 trans children I saw. Right. That was like. That wasn't all of them, admittedly. I think it was like 16 all in all. It's barely even a number if you think about it in the grand scheme of like how many kids there are and stuff that sort of needed that support and things, and families would come along too. And I was like, yeah, of course this is gender, right? And all the kids are trans now, and they're really not. Like it's still most kids are like a binary. They identify as their natal cisgender, whatever you want to say. Like but there are some trans kids and their experiences are valid too. And we've got to be, empathic towards them. We've got to understand like, what struggles they're going through, and we've got to give them support. And that's all we got to do. Right. So like, I think it's just, people are very misinformed. That's the problem. I think people are very misinformed.
Yeah. And I mean, it's again, it's the press, isn't it? With a lot of it as well. You think about it when Caitlyn Jenner transitioned, it was a show. Effectively, do you know what I mean? It was so well publicized that this incredibly famous man has transitioned seemingly overnight, you know what I mean, into a woman, and that was pressed out. And then that's what people get the idea that transgender is it one day you're a man, the next day you wake up and you're like, I don't want a penis anymore, and that's not really the case at all. And that's why a lot of trans women keep the penis because it doesn't define them as a female or a male. That's not, the genitals are unimportant. And that's why a lot of trans women won't go full op or full transition because it's unnecessary to do so. You know what I mean? And it's nothing, it doesn't make them any less of what they are simply because they've still got a piece of skin flapping between their legs. Like.
Exactly. Yeah. The thing is as well, like with the whole like sort of genital sort of like surgeries like phalloplasty and vaginoplasty and that sort of thing. Like people don't realize the amount of maintenance that goes into like maintaining like reassigned genitalia, because like the thing is like for example, like probably a bit too much information for some people, but I think it's important for them to know like if you transition from male to female and you have your penis turned into a vagina, it's not self-lubricating, so you've got to lubricate that every single day, right? And if you're and likewise if you're having a phalloplasty or they change there's phalloplasty and there's penoplasty. One of them stopped being done, but I've forgotten which one now, but like because they used to like one of them involved like putting a metal bar in the thing to like to basically simulate erections, but anyway like they stopped doing that now because like it's heavy metal poisoning is the thing, so which is interesting on a heavy metal podcast to say. I was gonna say so,
heavy metal poisoning is a thing. It's the title of my next black metal album.
That could be a help like but it's like but with that as well there's lots of maintenance that goes into that as well, so people that do have like genitalia swapped or changed, if you like, not swapped, that's the wrong word to use, do have to commit to something like massive. They commit something humongous, like it's because that's who they are. So the thing is, like, if you're willing to go through these procedures and stuff to be the true person that you are, and that means sacrificing relationships, that just goes to show how important this is to someone's
well-being. And to just what a lot of people do is just write it off as a phase or a mental illness, is in a lot of cases. And it's like, well, I've always looked at it this way, and I'm not saying it is a mental illness, but what if it is, and the treatment for that is to do what they've done, which means that they're a whole person and they feel fine, and everything that they've had previously is not there anymore. You know, I don't know, it seems kind of logical to me, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. I'm just a guy with a beard and a podcast. And
well, you're a great guy with a beard, to be fair. The thing is, like, you've got a point, because, like, that's the thing. Like, the people that experience gender dysphoria, which itself is a state rather than an illness, it's like, you know, experiencing a disconnect, what's they call it? A lack of congruence between congruence. I feel really psychological now.
That's nice.
Lack of congruence between. I know it's a good word, isn't it? Yeah, lack of congruence between gender assigned at birth and gender within, if that makes sense, that kind of thing. And that dysphoria itself is just a dysphoria, but then of course, like, if you experience like a daily basis of, like, you know, oh, you're not manly enough, you're not womanly enough, you're not this, you're not that, and it's like, fuck's sake, like, you know, and it's like that causes depression, that can like contribute to depression and anxiety and stuff, things like that. So we call those secondary illnesses, if you like. So actually, the procedures do probably assist in removing some of that difficulty. Dysphoria, But then, of course, there's this whole, like, we did this paper recently on hormones and gender affirmation and like psychosocial outcomes, which I'm not going to go into too much because my supervisor doesn't know I'm talking about this. But you're like, oh my god, Tom, we mentioned the paper's not out there yet. I don't think Mally cares, it's fine. Like,
I don't know.
Like, yeah, thanks, man, I appreciate it. Like, thank God. Like, there's this thing we observe where it's like saying, like, oh, so people start taking hormones, and what happens is their anxiety and depression levels like start to reduce. But then what happens is they get higher again after a certain point in transition, because basically then becomes an issue of, I'm no longer anxious about like not feeling myself, I'm more anxious now about things like experiencing discrimination, experiencing prejudice, experiencing those things. Like, the anxiety shifts actually. But the thing is, if we did as a society collectively say, let's stop being dicks to marginalized groups, you know, as a whole, then we could like improve people's mental health 10, 30 million fold. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Absolutely. So I'm going to wrap up pretty soon, Tom. It's been amazing. But one thing I kind of like to ask, if you were talking to the heavy metal community, right? If you were in front of a large group of people and you were talking about trans people and inclusion of trans people and, you know, equality, what advice would you give us to maybe approach it with trans people, or to better understand trans people? Are there any like tips? I know it's all about empathy and listening and understanding, but a lot of people agonize over the questions because I'm the sort of person I'll ask, you know. I'm never afraid to ask, and it never offends people if you're genuinely interested. But is there anything you would say that the best way to approach it, or the best place to get information about trans people, you know, and to be better prepared and more respectful for if you encounter trans people?
Yeah, sure. So there's plenty of resources out there. It's like, the internet's a great thing, obviously. Like, there's lots of things on the internet, like with charities. I always look for charities. I would say like the Mermaids charity, Stonewall's really good. And they have like lots of things you can read about them. Well, Stonewall's had some controversy recently, but I still think they're pretty good. But I'm going to be cancelled now probably. But like, that's fine. I'll deal with that as it comes. I think it's more about the controversy with, well, certain people have certain opinions, and those opinions might be wrong. Anyway, like, the internet has great like resources on it, which that's the main thing I would say. But the most important thing I think is, if you do know a transgender person, speak to them. That's like the most important thing you can do. And like, if you do have questions, just ask the questions, because a lot of them are happy to answer the questions, as long as not disrespectful questions. Like, so I remember I worked with some trans people, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. But one person did ask me a really bizarre question. I was like, what's that? I said, did you keep your own knees after transitioning? I was like, what do you mean, did you keep your own knees after transitioning? What a strange thing to ask. But so that happens sometimes. There's like, so I guess like some questions are kind of, I don't know, not dumb. There's no such thing as a stupid question. That's what I always say, because I'm a teacher as well, right? So
only stupid people. Yeah, you're right.
But you can become smarter, right? That's the thing. Stupid person. I'm an incredibly stupid person, trust me. So I think speaking to trans people is the most important thing. Like, exposing yourself to that community and like having discussions, and like obviously do it respectfully. Don't just like burst into like a you know, support group for transgender people and be like, I have questions for all of you. That's not always a good way to go about things. Speaking from experience, and my experience of like, you know, the Milkshake Drinkers Anonymous Society. I'm joking, like when I burst in there that time. I'm kidding. Like, so like so I think mainly it's just sitting down and talking. That's the main one really, and just like looking at resources. And I guess the other thing as well is like the critical thinking aspect, like using critical thinking around like people like Piers Morgan, and well, he's not on TV anymore. What a great world we live in now. And I'm joking. Like,
no, I know. Don't worry. I agree entirely.
Yeah. So like, people like that who have these very controversial and very misinformed like opinions about like whole communities of people, and like, you know, letting people be is so important. And I guess like that's the thing as well. Like, if we just tried to make society a bit better, like overall, like just not just for trans people, but stop judging people based on their appearances. Yeah, we'd probably be in a much better place. I've sort of gone from the thing, but yes, that's what I was going to say. I'd probably write it down first. I tend to thump for quite a lot. But yeah,
that's like, cool, mate. No, that's what we're all about. That's what it's, you know, that's what it's all about. It's just chatting and all that, you know. So there's nothing, there's no structure to it at all. So on a final note, musically, anyone you want to big up at the moment? Any bands that are doing it for you, new or old, that you think would?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, new or old? I guess like recently, I've been on a bit of a nostalgia kick recently. You know, so like recently it's been like a lot of Typo Negative. Like actually, yeah. I looked up to Peter Steele so much in my youth. Like, you know, firstly, he was, you know, a talented musician, super, like, I think he's like a genius. And obviously he was gorgeous as well. Proper crush that was. Like, so like.
do you know the story of somebody? He was a groundskeeper in New York. And I think a woman approached him and asked to buy his sperm because he was that much of a specimen. You know what I mean? That she was like, I want to have your babies. You know what I mean?
To be fair, he's like a 6'7" muscly dude. Like, you know, let's face it. Like,
yeah. So is typos? So it's a bit of typo at the moment. Anyone new that you've come across, or is it just you kind of stuck like me and stuck in your old listening habits?
Anyone new that I've come across? Tell you what, let me look at my Spotify very briefly, because like the thing is, I do sometimes get these random recommendations that I see. I do quite like listening to, but I'm trying to think. Like, I'll tell you what I listened to recently. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. What are they called? Enter Shikari, do you know them?
Oh yeah.
So I heard their new album, and like it's much softer than their older stuff, which, you know, people are like, oh, it's softer and blah blah blah. There's a song called Dreamers Hotel, which I really like. They did an acoustic version of it. I thought it was really good. Like, it has like a nice progression. It was released last year, I think, like late last year. And I guess they've been around a little while, but like the song Dreamers Hotel has like this really interesting like narrative running through it. There's like another few lyrics for one, like it's like I'm a knight in Camelot, fighting the trolls and the bots. But he's talking about like obviously the internet and stuff, and it's quite quite cool. But I'd recommend checking that out. So it's called Dreamers Hotel by Enter Shikari, and like it's just a really cool tune. Yeah,
there we are. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I could talk all day. I genuinely could.
I genuinely could too.
Because it's been incredible, mate. And you're a great guy. I've got a lot of respect for you, and thank you so much for coming on. It's very important to me is mental health and the awareness of mental health issues within our community and beyond our community. The heavy metal community is somewhere that a lot of people are afraid to talk, but I think it's time that we started breaking down those barriers and talking. Every Malcast video is going to have a link to Mind charity on it, who help people with mental health issues. So whether it's depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, anything related to mental health, there's help out there for you, and there's places you can contact. I run regular Depression Club live events on TikTok, of all places. 45-year-old man with a TikTok account. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can start spreading some awareness using the podcast, and we're also going to have people on talking about their mental health challenges and how that affects them and what helps them, whether it's heavy metal as a catharsis or going to festivals, or generally just being part of this community. So yeah, there's going to be lots of mental health related stuff.